Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of My Thoughts. We're back here. It's been a little while since My Thoughts, I guess. We're back here with also kind of more regular content, just in general, just trying to get back on track here. Especially for summertime, we got a lot of new stuff coming up. But we're back here with My Thoughts, and I have a few My Thoughts and My Thoughts episodes in mind, so there'll be more My Thoughts coming out in the coming weeks to a month. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff, and this is one of them. So I'm going to be talking about pretty much The Last of Us, the HBO show, season 2 that just wrapped up. I've watched all the episodes, and I know I did this kind of before. I was doing some research on the channel. I know I did a couple of my thoughts on the HBO series in general. And I kind of split it up. So I know I did one before the show actually came out. Then I did a couple. I kind of broke it up in my thoughts episodes. I kind of broke it up into I know I did episode 4, I think. Then I did the finale of season 1. I kind of broke it up into pieces a little bit. And that was cool and all. But I figured I'll just do this in one big my thoughts episode. And I'm just going to be talking about all the episodes and the entire show of season 2 in general. So. I figured that would be probably much easier, so I was waiting a while. I was waiting until it pretty much finished. The season 2 pretty much wrapped up, and it wrapped up I think a week or two ago. I think it was about a week or two ago. But yeah, I finished I finished it up, and I figured I'd make my thoughts on it, and I figured I would just, like I was saying, make one big episode for it as compared to before where I broke it up. So should be pretty easier to follow along, I figured, and I'll probably be doing this. There is a season 3 confirmed. I'm not entirely sure when season 3 is going to come out for The Last of Us HBO, but there is a season 3. So we're going to be getting right into that. I'll be doing my thoughts, probably the same kind of formula here. I'll be doing my thoughts whenever season 3 comes out and it finishes. I'll be doing a complete my thoughts on season 3. But we'll get to that later. But this is pretty much going to be more or less my raw thoughts on season 2. I do have a lot of criticism of it. I don't really like it that much. I'm going to be a little bit more critical of it. There were some moments in there that I don't really like. And yeah, just as a Last of Us fan, it kind of hurts a little bit. But we're going to be getting into all that good stuff. I'm going to be reading a little bit off of the wiki here, just Wikipedia for The Last of Us HBO. But I'm also going to be giving more of, the raw my thoughts. So I'm going to be reading off the script here to start. So the second season of the American post-apocalyptic drama television series The Last of Us was originally broadcast on HBO between April and May 2025. Based on the video game franchise developed by Naughty Dog, season set 25 years into a pandemic caused by a mass fungal infection, which causes its host to transform into zombie-like creatures and collapses society. The Last of Us plot, pretty much. It's, pretty much all that. More or less, season 2 kind of follows The Last of Us 2. Pretty much it follows the plot based. And of course, there's changes, but it more or less, season 2 more or less follows the plot of The Last of Us Part 2 game. And yeah, so, again, I'm going to be giving more raw my thoughts. There were some things that I really enjoyed in it, but most things I didn't really like. Episode 1, it kind of followed more or less The Last of Us plot, but there were some things that they changed that I really wasn't a fan of. And there are probably going to be some spoilers that I'm going to say just for general usage. They did have this one scene where pretty much most all the infected ransacked Jackson, which is the community, of course. They ransacked Jackson, which wasn't in the game, but I think that would have really been cool if it was in the game. But I really enjoyed that part where there was like a big battle between the people, the community of Jackson, and all the infected. So that was a pretty nice addition. I enjoyed that, but there were some things. I didn't really like how they set up Ellie and Dina. Like, I didn't really like how they kind of set up their relationship. It's way different than it was in the game. It didn't include some scenes that I think they should have. They kind of cut out a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that to make it play-by-play, because obviously if it went exactly how the game went, it would be pretty much, you would know exactly what happens, especially people who do play the game. So I support the fact that you have to switch it up a little bit. But they just switch up crucial plot points that just really suck. Like, it sucks the fact that they didn't really set up Dina and Ellie's relationship like the way that it was in the game, which I think it should have been. They didn't even have it's just little things, kind of like they didn't even have Tommy go to Seattle and run off how he did. They kind of had him come into Seattle a little bit later, and I just really didn't like. I didn't really like it. So I'm going to be kind of reading more of the article here. I'll be kind of going in and out of my thoughts and kind of the article. So I'll be kind of all over the article here. It's nothing too much. It's just pretty much reviewing the show. Critics felt this season reinforced The Last of Us as the best video game adaptation, praising the action sequences, direction, performances, production design, and writing through. Some criticized the pacing and considered the story incomplete, which I think I agree with. It was nominated for several awards across linear channels and Max or HBO Max, whatever you want to call it. Of course, you have Pedro Pascal as Joel, which I support that. I think he did a fine job as Joel. Of course, he died. Of course, they played that up as he did die. Of course, as portrayed in the game and also in the show. But I think he did a fine job as Joel. He's a fine actor there. You have Caitlin Dever as Abby, and I'm going to kind of go over some of the more main characters and who they play. Caitlin Dever as Abby is a Washington Liberation Front soldier who seeks revenge against Joel for the death of her father and subsequently has her worldview changed. Pretty much the same concept of what she does in the game. 3 months later, and this is episode 3, The Path, which is honestly, this is, again, something I don't support. 3 months later, after pretty much Joel dies, Dina tells Ellie that the group who killed Joel, members of the WLF, are based in Seattle, which, again, I really don't feel like they had to change that. I think that, Tommy knew a little bit more about the WLF, which she told Ellie that. I don't think they should have had Dina do that. It's just a little stupid change that I don't really agree with. Of course, then they have the big meeting in town, which is where they kind of vote on which, if they want to take a bunch of people to Seattle to go fight the WLF. Of course, it's kind of overruled. So, just Ellie and Dina end up going. But I also don't like how they waited 3 months after Joel died. Like, in the game, Ellie went pretty much right away, like, the night of, I think. Or I think she went the day after. But they didn't wait 3 months, which I don't really agree with. That just doesn't make sense plot-wise. Like, Ellie was so ready to go in the game, and she was so, there to go. She was ready to go, in an instant, and ready to go take revenge. So, I just don't see why they had to make a 3 month time skip. Of course, I think it was also a really nice addition. Ellie leaves coffee beans on Joel's grave, because of course we like coffee. And then they kind of go into Seattle. It's just I'm kind of rough copying of like kind of what it says on the wiki here. But it's kind of more or less the game. But I'm just going to kind of be going over the critical points of it that I really don't support. And also, again, my thoughts on it. So it's kind of all over the place. But I'm kind of ranting. This is more of a rant episode of my thoughts. Sometimes I'll have my thoughts be a little bit more organized. But since it's a show and I feel so passionately about it, it's more of a rant. And I'll kind of be all over the place. I'll try to keep it intact. But it's more or less going to be a rant. Because I have more things that I don't like about this show than anything. So yeah, it's more or less, they kind of played up this season. Another critical thing I have, they played up the season, and I was excited for the season. I thought they would do better. They kind of played up the season to be so actionist and blah blah blah, and it was going to be action. But honestly, most of it's just a lot of slow parts. Sure, there's some action parts in it, but it's really not kind of what they played up to be in like the trailer for the season and everything. Um, they it's really not kind of what they played up to be. So it's more or less not, again, there's some action sequences, but it's more or less slow times. There's more slow kind of pace, slow pacing in the show and all the episodes, even in the season finale. There's more slow pacing than anything, and I really don't like that either. That's another thing that they kind of, didn't really be too clear about. Of course, you have in episode 4, it's day one. Of course, day one in Seattle, you have Isaac and all the other WLF people kind of hanging around doing stuff with the Seraphites and whatnot. You kind of have Isaac's backstory. He was with the Fedra, but then he kind of betrayed them, and he's the WLF's leader. Again, he kind of killed a Seraphite, and just kind of shows the brutalness of Isaac, which I like that. I think that they kind of showed that. They did kind of show the, how brutal he is as a leader in the game, and they kind of re-harp on that within the show, which that's a nice point. And then here's some of the changes that more changes that I don't really agree with. And then, of course, in the subway, Ellie breathes spores, and that's how Dina finds out Ellie's immune. And this, in the HBO, she gets bitten instead of breathing in spores, which is fine. That's just exposed. It's just another way to just another change that exposes Ellie's immunity to Dina. Of course, Dina, and this is a change that did not happen in the game, and I think it was kind of unnecessary. Dina, of course, thinks that Ellie is now bitten and she's going to turn at some point. So they go into the theater, kind of like in the game. They hide out in the theater. And then, of course, Dina kind of Well, I'm going to get into it in the article, of course. So they go into the theater. Heartbroken Dina prepares to shoot Ellie, who explains that she is immune. Of course, the whole thing. Dina confesses to Ellie that she is then pregnant, kind of like in the game. But of course, they have sex, which kind of replaces the first sex scene when they were in the weed den in Jackson, which is another thing they kind of changed. But yeah, so she kind of aimed a gun at Ellie the entire night, and then they ended up having sex. That's par for the course. But then the next morning, of course, they overhear the WLF, including Nora, that they're based at Lake Hill Seattle Hospital, and Dean tells Ellie that she wants to go with her, and that wraps up episode 4, which kind of doesn't really match up. Again, Ellie only went to the hospital and interrogated Nora, and Dina didn't go. She kind of stayed behind, but pregnant, and, she went out straight into the battlefield pregnant, which is kind of messed up. And here's a scene I'm going to show you guys that I really hate. I swear to God, I hate this scene so much. And I don't think you guys are ever going to see me get more, adamant about something on this channel. I'm really going to get into it here after I show you the scene. This is a scene from episode 4, towards the end of it.
So, we're having a baby. I mean, we, and also, I guess, Jesse, or... It was Jesse, right? So we're all having a baby. Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah.
It's fair use, folks. Yeah, so that was Ellie's initial reaction to Dina being pregnant, which I really don't like that. First of all, saying that you're going to be the dad when the actual father, which is Jesse, is alive, he's alive and well, it's kind of messed up, and he's also in town, which we'll find out later. That's also kind of messed up. Her reaction was not like that in the game. She was more very upset that Dina kept it from her. So Ellie was not like this in the game. First of all, that's another thing. They do not portray Ellie in Season 2 like they do in Part 2, the game. Ellie was more on a revenge path, and more Ellie in the show, as where Ellie in the show is just more silly. She's like, oh, I'm gonna be a dad, blah blah blah. That just really gets me upset. It really grinds my gears. Because why would she, she's on a revenge path. She's there because Joel died in the most horrific way possible, I would say. And she's still cracking jokes, which Ellie was absolutely not like that. She was just straight down to business trying to find Abby in Part 2. She was absolutely not like that, which I don't like how they portrayed her to be like that in the show, which is the thing I really have a problem with. I hate that scene. I hate that scene more than any other scene in this show. That is my most hated scene, and I know a lot of other people hate it too. And you could call me critical or whatever. I told you guys I'm going to get vocal about this. This is the most vocal you'll ever see me about anything. I just really don't like how they portrayed her in the show, just in general. I feel like they kind of could have got away with it in Season 1, but definitely not in Season 2, because Ellie was way changed as compared to the game. So, I don't mind little changes if they have to make it. I could appreciate that, to kind of switch it up a little bit. But they just did straight up stuff that is absolutely not necessary and kind of a disrespect to the game. And Neil Druckmann, he worked on this show, and as a creator of also the game itself with Naughty Dog and whatnot, he should know. He should know more or less how the game is. It's not like a bunch of people who haven't seen or worked on the game. He worked on the game, so he should know. Amongst other people, they should know how the game goes, and they just don't do it that way, which I think gets me even more angry. So, as a Last of Us fan, I really enjoyed, of course, Last of Us Part 1 and 2. I really enjoyed both games. But with all that, I really this show just gets me really, gets me going, So I really hated that scene. That was one of the key points I really wanted to go on. Ellie just is not the way she is. Kind of just going through, of course. Then she goes to the hospital, gets the information out of Nora and whatnot. Then of course there's one episode dedicated to all the flashbacks with Joel with the museum scene and whatnot. That's kind of how it is with the game. That was episode 6, and then episode 7, which is the finale. Of course, Ellie regroups with Dina and Jesse afterwards, shaken by her own brutality against Nora. I'm gonna kind of like the game, but she reveals to Dina that what Joel did at the hospital, prompting Dina to suggest they return home. Jesse pursues the source of the gunshots, who he believes to be Tommy, while Ellie commandeers a motorboat to travel to a nearby aquarium where she believes Abby to be, located based on the information from Nora. And then she kind of gets into a little bit of a fight with the Seraphites, which was another thing that they kind of added on. Then, of course, she enters the aquarium and finds Owen and Mel. And this is another thing that's kind of stupid, how Mel died. It was kind of more or less Owen's fault. It wasn't even Ellie's fault. I wouldn't even blame this entirely on Ellie. Um, Owen grabs a gun. Of course, in the game, Ellie has him at gunpoint. Then Owen grabs the gun in the show. Ellie fatally shoots him. The bullet strikes the pregnant Mel, who begs Ellie to deliver her baby as she dies. To no avail. Jesse, that was also another goofy scene. Jesse and Tommy rescue Ellie, but it was also more Owen's fault that Mel died. I couldn't really blame myself if I were Ellie, because, of course, Owen was the one who grabbed the gun and killed Mel. And then, of course, they kind of, the usual stuff in the theater. They have the theater fight with Abby. And Abby, of course, shoots Jesse. And then that kind of ends it off. And then season 3 is kind of going into Abby's part of the story. Of course, you technically play as Abby in part 2. So that's what season 3 is going to be more about, as that kind of caps off the season. So I know a lot of other people had a problem. I know I was just kind of skimming through here. I really just wanted to go on my key points, but I'll read a little bit more of the article here, which is kind of information about season 3. But I know a lot of other people had problems with the show, kind of the same sort of problems I did, which, I agree with that. And a lot of other people didn't have problems with the show. I think more fans of the game have problems with it, just like me. And people who really haven't played the game don't have too much problems with it because they haven't really seen it. I don't really blame them. But this show really, especially season 2, they just messed a bunch of stuff up. There was some really cool parts in the show, but they just really messed a lot of stuff up, and they kind of dropped the ball on it. And I can only imagine that season 3 is going to be even, worse. I do have high hopes, but I can only imagine the bar is set pretty low. But I would like to think that season 3 is going to be better, but judging off of what they did, I can only imagine it's going to be worse. Hopefully they do a lot of stuff right. And yeah, so kind of going into kind of a little bit here extra here on Wikipedia. HBO renewed The Last of Us for a second season on January 27th, 2023, which just so happened to be my birthday. That's kind of irrelevant, but that is my birthday. Yeah, I guess there's not much here for season 3, but there is a season 3. We know that much. It'll probably come out within the next year or two. Then I'll be talking about it then. Then some of the audience response here, just kind of going over some general stuff here. Season was subjective review bombing on Rotten Tomatoes, sitting at a 61% of approval rating after the first episode, and dropping to 49% after the third, and 39% after the sixth. Similar bombing occurred on Metacritic, resulting in a user review score of 3.6 out of 10 as nadir, with 62% classified as negative. The initial backlash criticized Bella Ramsey and Caitlin Dever's lack of resemblance to their in-game characters, but that's kind of far. That's a common complaint, I think, between everybody. Just they don't really look like Ellie or Abby. I think Caitlin Dever looks pretty good as Abby. I think she's not too bad. But definitely Bella Ramsey does not look anything like Ellie, and that's a lot of people's complaint. Again, this is some people's responses. This is not entirely my critic of it, whatever you want to call it. The manner of Joel's death, some of the larger changes from the source material, which is, again, some of my problems with it. Journalists attributed much of the later backlash to a homophobic response to Ellie and Dina's love story and complaints about woke culture, which that's not really my specific problem with it. I mean, that's kind of, again, they were lesbian in the game, they're lesbian in the show, that's just how it is, you're following the source material. I don't really have a problem with that. That's just how it is. People get, it's a whole bunch of things. There's a lot of controversy with it. Yeah, a lot of people just didn't like it. And more as the season 2 kind of dropped, it dropped again. I was really focused on more of the reviews there, and it kind of dropped on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic and whatnot. It kind of dropped. But yeah, that's just kind of how everybody perceived it. I kind of perceived it as the same. And you know what? I think season 3, people probably aren't going to watch it as much as, I don't know. I don't think people are going to watch season 3 that much. So, the series achieved an estimated $72 million in subscriber value for HBO Max. That's just another thing. And yeah, that kind of wraps it up for my thoughts. I know I was kind of all over the place, and sometimes There'll be these kind of my thoughts episodes where I'll follow off with a little bit of a script and give my thoughts, or I'll just be ranting all over the place. And that's kind of how it was in today's episode. I feel really strongly about this. This is a good topic of my thoughts. I feel really strongly about the show and kind of how it changed. Of course, mostly bad things that I really wasn't too much of a fan of. The show, of course, and at this point, I'm going to watch the show just because I'm interested to see how much they mess it up. I want to see how bad they make it, or maybe they'll redeem themselves. Doubtful, but maybe they'll redeem themselves and make the show actually good. But I'll watch it regardless, just because I just want to see how it kind of falls from grace. But I don't really have too much big expectations for season 3 itself. But I'll watch it nonetheless. I'll put myself through it. But yeah, I really feel adamantly about this. So yeah, I think this is the most hyped up you guys will ever see me, like in a video. Usually I'm pretty chill and rigid. I don't really get too much into it. But this show just really has me, fired up. But of course, again, I think for season 3 I'll do the same formula. Like I was saying, I'll do the same formula. I'll just review the entire season as a whole, as compared to season 1 when I kind of broke it up into different episodes. So this is just a review of season 2 as a whole on my thoughts. So hopefully it's easier for you guys to kind of take in and talk about it and stuff like that. Yeah, so all that being said, I also, unfortunately, didn't really have too much Last of Us gameplay. I could have, drawn from the game, but of course, it's not, I always try to make gameplay relatable to what I'm talking about, but, kind of sometimes it'll stray from that, and, it is what it is, but, yeah, that's just a little bit of a side point, but, yeah, that'll pretty much wrap it up. I'm just trying to do some construction here on the channel. I'm trying to do some experiments with gameplay and whatnot. I'm actually more or less kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see if the shorter amount of gameplay I do, more people will watch it and views wise. So there'll be some shorter gameplay coming out, kind of like you guys have probably been seeing in terms of gameplay. Just a little bit of a view experimentation here on the channel, just with analytics and whatnot. It's just shorter gameplay. I just want to see if that gets more views as to my longer form content. That's just the analytics thing that I'm doing on the side here and other things with the channel. But just getting ready for summer here. There's a lot of stuff going to be coming out this summer, so stay tuned for all that, including more My Thoughts episodes. I'll be having slew of topics to talk about. And yeah, with all that being said, make sure to subscribe for more content. Like to do all stuff, Discord, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, links in the description. Of course, this is another topic I would really like to see you guys comment on. Comment down below what you guys think of season 2 of The Last of Us. If you watched it, if you agree with me, do you think they kind of messed it up and dropped the ball in terms of the source material, which would be the game? Let me know kind of what you think. It's a very real topic I would definitely like to see a lot of people talk about in the comments. So, leave all your thoughts in the comments. Even if it's good, if you guys think the show is good, I respect your opinion. We all have different opinions, and that's what makes that's what makes it great. We all have different opinions. Some people might think the show is great. Some people might think the show is horrible, kind of like I do. I'm leaning towards. I'll respect your opinion, whatever it is. If you want to leave it in the comments, leave all that stuff below. I'll respect any opinions, of course. That's always one of my top priorities, to respect the opinions of anybody. Whatever it is it may be. I respect it. So, yeah, and also, the usual stuff in the comments. Feedback, all that good stuff. Leave it all below in the comments. And, yeah, got big stuff coming. With all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.